Hi, it's just keep on coughing when I'm on camera. I don't normally. It's Pete, the bumbling modeler here again. So we're on the final bit of a stint through the Brengun carrier. So let's move. So whilst we've been away, I've put the final. Sometimes things just shift a bit when you least expect them. I've assembled the sides. I can't remember where it was. I need a script so I know what I've done last. It's getting ridiculous. I'm really disorganised, sorry. But this has all gone together. That's my fingerprints on that. I'll dust it all off later. We've got no visible joints on the sides of this front or side. So going stage by stage, it took a lot longer. Gluing up a corner, letting it set, matching the next corner, letting it set. But it's worked out to our benefit. There are only slight gaps down here and here, but we can live with that. The ones you're going to be drawn to are the main ones, so you sort of have to pick your battles, really. We've chucked everything together. Wheels and bogies went together without too much trouble. Be careful with the instructions, though. You can get this one upside down, so you put that return roller here and the other one there, or this one there, sorry, it just doesn't work. And I put the track on one side. That's the only really frustrating part of this kit. So I'll talk about that in a second. Then I've got to detail paint things like the headlight, this little side light water can. Then they can go in. They're on, sorry. Then they can be drying up. As I expected, I've bent the wing mirror when I was putting the track on, but that's life, you know. They're so fragile. I should have put it on last, but I didn't. So I've still got these little sand shields to put on, or dust shields, which you have to put on after the tracks are on. So they'll go on and be painted in a minute. These are little steps that sit on the side somewhere there for crew access. Again, because they stick out, I'll put them on last of all and paint them. So do that. I've done the outside of this back here that has the camouflage netting. I've got to find a suitable colour or blend of colours from what we've got to just do the netting in that. That's not going to be a big issue. I'm not sure if I painted the wood on the Brengun. I'm not overly happy with the colour of that. I've mixed up a sort of brownish shade from the sand and the green and the black, and it is what it is, really. It's nothing special. I think if I was going to do this again, I'd probably invest in a brownish colour as well as the sand and spend that extra £2.50. I don't know whether it came out very well last time. The end of that gun, I don't even see that, but well, we've drilled it out. It does make a huge difference when you look at it. You can see it's a hollow gun barrel now, so I'm glad I did that. So yeah, it's just a case of chucking the other tracks on, a little bit of detail painting, and then we'll do the dry brushing on the outside to sort of blend everything in. Put a dusty coat on the lower halves and the decals on. I haven't put the tools on the back yet because there's a number plate that goes here and it'd be awkward to get that in. So I'll put the number plate on, then the lower tools. Then I've got all these little bits of ammunition boxes, stowage, fuel cans and such like, which sit in various places in the hull. I shall paint them up all slightly different shades of green so it doesn't look as uniform and bland. And some will be a bit more chunky and battered than others, so they'll be painted last and dropped in. So tracks, as I say, fiddly as anything. I've left this one loose so it's got a bit of spin on it to help us align things. The track itself joins by that little keyed bit, fits into this fella here, and it locks in place. And lock is a rather dubious word. It's quite a stiff track. And to put it on, first of all, I fed it around the sprocket, which is glued solid. It might be worth leaving that loose actually, but make sure the teeth, it's just broken again, I'll have to do that. Make sure the teeth are all engaged on that sprocket because it gives you an extra couple of millimeters of movement. Annoyingly, that has just come undone. If I had super glue, I'd super glue it all together, but we said we'd make it with a bare minimum of tools, so I have to whip that off. Carefully a direction so that little V there faces down, and put the joint I could actually leave it because no one's here. Put the joint here because these shields are going to sit over that. It's that one, sorry. Yeah, these shields sit over it, and it's a pretty ugly joint. So that hides it, so you'll never see that. I will have to rejoin that track, which means taking it off again. These are the bit that's most frustrated. And when you put them on, I found it's best to get your tweezers and grip that joint like a vice and don't let go till you've fed the track on, and make sure you get the direction right. Obviously, you can do it that way or that way. It's frustrating as heck. I'll get that done. I'll glue the other bits on, get it painted, and show you where we're at. But yeah, you're going to struggle with that, and you are going to get really annoyed with it. It might be worth nipping down the shops and spending a couple of quid on a tube of super glue if you feel that way inclined. You haven't got any lying around the house. But this stuff here won't touch it. It's not dissolvable, so you need a proper glue to do it. So, right, I'll be back in a minute when this is all assembled. Hi, it's another day, but we're back onto it. So a bit's happened since you've last seen this model. So I've assembled it as much as we can assemble. We've still got to put decals on, which we'll do after it's dry brushed. So you will see a bit of that, but I say not a lot. This is going to go on for too long of a time. So yeah, everything is attached to the body. Tracks are on. I've given the tracks a coat of a sort of mix of the rubber black and a bit of green, just to sort of knock it back a bit. We look at the tracks on, next time you get past a building site or anything, look at a bulldozer or a digger, you'll see the almost a grey colour. So that's even that's a bit dark. Not sitting particularly well, but I don't want to fiddle because he'll snap. We're going to put wash over those as well, and then highlight the upper parts with pencil so you get a metallic look. Again, you'll see all that. I've given a bit of a pin wash all over the detail at the front. You're not really seeing it, which is good. You're not meant to see it, you're just meant to be aware of it. All the little bits of stowage, ammunition boxes and such like, what I've done is split those into 3 at random, not 3 of this type and 3 of that type, mounted them on 3 coffee stirrers, and then I've painted them ever so slightly different shades. So that coffee stick with 4 of one, it was a shade of green. That was a slightly different shade of green. That's a slightly different one. Then when they come together, they don't look any different, but you won't sort of pick up that they are a different green, but you will. If they were all the same green, they'd look a bit naff, is what I'm trying to say. So they're sort of partly done, and we'll chuck them in later on, again at random, so hopefully you don't get 2 exact shades the same way, just to try and sort of highlight that those aren't part of the vehicle, that add-on bits, so they'll all be slightly different. There's a canvas bag in the back which we've painted a buff colour with a net in it. The net is actually a very close colour to the bag. It wasn't meant to be, but it's a slightly different colour. Then I've given it a pin wash over there to bring up the texture of that and bring out these straps, so that's all right. It's not ideal, but it's okay. So the next thing we need to do really is dry brush the outside of this, partly to highlight the detail and partly to lighten the overall tone. So because when we have an airbrush, you haven't got a chance to pre or post shade, but if you go over the whole sort of area of dry brushing, it'll just lighten everything and you'll get a bit more shadow in these corners, which is the reason. So I've got the dry brushing made, and I'm just manipulating it because it might be a bit stiff with old paint, so you want it as soft as you can. So just wheedle it round to make sure it's as soft as can be. Bit of paper towel as before. I've pre-mixed up some slightly paler green here, so again I've just put it on that so that it stays in the corner, so it's got a slightly deeper pool so it doesn't dry out. So first of all, like before, we want to get that brush fully soaked in it to prime the brush. I forgot to stick down a bit of white tack when I picked it up. Just get that off the brush. That's just to get the brush working. I don't know if that's not a bit, it might not be light enough. Let's put a bit more brave and put a bit more sand in that on it. Quite a bit lighter. This is almost like your pantomime makeup style thing where you want it. If you're up close, it looks ridiculous, but from a distance, it looks passable. So it's just that shade or two lighter. It's definitely lighter than the model now. We can do this in multiple passes. It doesn't really matter. We could do this and then come back, lighten it, and go over again, so you get several different shades of light. But anyway, that's a bit lighter. Just wipe that stick off so it doesn't get everywhere. I'll give you a brief recap on what we're doing with this, and then I'm going to do it off camera. Otherwise, again, this will go on for about a year and a half, which we don't want. So now I've got my brush. I'm going to do that till it's just working. Make sure I haven't got it all over my hands. Let me just start off on that raised bits. We go as lightly as we can at first. So it's just starting to pick up on that edge, which is quite nice. We don't push too hard because we don't want to leave streaks. We just want the paint to gather on the highest areas. And we want the tone to slightly lighten, which I don't know if you can see is starting to lighten this. It's not picking up much detail there, there's not much detail to pick up. You can see the rivets starting to show now as you push that a little bit harder. This foot plate here starting to show. We'll go a bit more heavy around that one. You don't want to see a drastic change. You just want to see some detail spring out. So we look at that there. I'm not sure the camera's showing that. That's light, certainly lightened the center of that panel. And again, we're going to wash that, so it's going to be all right. If you compare it to that one, I can definitely see a difference. It may need to go a shade lighter, but what I'll do is I'll go over this whole, and we are going to go this whole surface, and it will pick up just about everything. It doesn't matter what colour's down, we just want to lighten up. So these fenders want to lighten in the centre. Just to make all this little bit of detail pop out a little bit. I think we could probably go another shade lighter on that, if I'm honest. You can see on those rivets, or I can, am I off camera again? Sorry, you just see there, starting to. I might keep it like that, I don't know. I might carry on with a shade and then come back round and do some other areas. Even like you can see on that wheel now, it's really starting to lighten that. And say it's, yeah, I think it's about right actually. I don't think. So I'll carry on doing this off camera and I get the idea. Then we'll show you what the overall effect is when I'm finished, and then we'll let this dry off. Whop the decals on. Sorry, keep on wandering off camera because I've got it a lot closer. We'll whop the decals on, then give it a slight wash, do the tracks, then we're just about glue all the interior bits in, then we're just about finished. I'll just switch off for now, and then we'll be back when it's all dry brushed. Clipping thing. Okay, so off camera, I've been over all of this, and hopefully you can see now. We've got some quite light edges all over this. I went over initially on that shade you saw, and went over with a slightly lighter shade in certain areas, like the area around this Brengun here. Hopefully you'll see that hollowed out barrel there as well. I've gone around the exhaust. I've hollowed out the exhaust tips the same way I've did the gun, because they're quite noticeable. So for those and this back canvas back, I've gone with almost a pure sand colour. So it really lightens it. Same on the top of the tarpaulin there. The rest of it, I've just gone lighter and lighter until I'm happy with the effect. So it's quite light around this spare wheel and square wheel bracket, because it's quite a nice feature. Those could probably do with a bit of lightning as well, so they really stand out, the little towing hooks. I'm not putting a towing cable on this because it's a cotton cable that you're meant to super glue to the eyelets, and we haven't got any super glue, so it wasn't. Oh, that'll have to be a bit of mud. I'm gonna go sandy coloured fingerprint in that. I can deal with that. Might just be in time to get it off with a lick that brush and just scrub it. If not, starting to lift it, and that if I hadn't been able to rescue that, that would have been a paint chip. I've glued all the internal stowage in, because all those boxes are slightly different colour, which you can't pick out, but you can, if you know what I mean. I can see that there's something different about all of them, but I can't quite tell what. So that's giving the effect I wanted. So they're glued in now. So when we put a dust coat on, if any dust goes on them, it'll blend with the outside of the hull. So yeah, we've dry brushed to our heart's content, and we're starting to pick out all the nice little bits of detail, and it's not looking as bland and single shaded. So I'm gonna have to let that dry for an hour or so. Then I'll come back, put some decals on it, let them dry for an hour or so. Then we'll put a sandy coloured white attached to missing tools that are off camera, the pick and the crowbar and the pick head. They'll go on there once we've got that serial number across the back. Then give it a sandy coloured wash on the lower hull and let it gradiate up, and probably try and streak down so it looks like rain streaks on it. Then it's just about finished, and then we can evaluate what you can do with the most basic bits and pieces of equipment to build a model kit. So thanks for watching this bit. You'll see the next bit right away. I'll be gone for about an hour in real time, so that's how long the sort of model takes. I'm only telling you so you get an idea of the process time. So you'll see me in a minute, and I'm going to have my lunch. Bye for now. Hi, back again. So that's had an hour or so for everything to dry off. It probably needs overnight, but don't want to wait that long. I want to get this sort of rolling. So it's yeah, you can start to see what we've done with the dry brushing. It's subtle. There's not big chunks of light paint over it, but it's done what we want. Now the decals are quite. I don't know if you can pick up the carrier film on it when I wobble them around, but there's not a great deal of carrier film on anyone other than the serial numbers. So they are going to be our nemesis, really, because we will get silvering. There's no way around that, I don't think. But that's by the by. Let's see what we can do. I'm going to go for this particular version for no other reason than I like that big white star on it. I like this one with the colourful flag, but there's a little spigot at the front there, which means I'd have to drill a hole through the decal to get the decal to sit down, and being honest, can't be bothered. So I'll put one decal on to show you how I'll do it on this kit, and then after that I'll do it off camera and show you when we're completed with that bit. So first of all, we need to cut out a decal. I'll start with, oh, I've got all my little bits and pieces there. Where can I put them where I won't lose them? Just put on this, try it out of the way. It's the essential bits. I'll need my knife to cut out a decal. They do say use scissors because you get ridges and the decals won't slide, etc., etc. But I've never had a problem, so I'll treat it like I won't. So pick your decal, which is a large star. We make sure we don't have any of that number 13 on it because that'll get the little black blobs off that'll get transferred over. And these are going to be unnaturally white. We'll have to do something to tone them down a little bit, but we'll worry about that in a minute. And we need some ordinary tap water. So I'm just going to put a blob on the bench rather than get trays and saucers. I've never found the need. We'll need our tweezers. I'll use the curvy ones. And I put the decal in upside down so when it curls into the water, and I'll just watch it until it's all fully soaked through. Nearly there. And when the time comes, I'll need a bit of water on the model, so we're going to use the finer of our paint brushes. We'll need that. And we'll need a cotton swab or cotton bud, which I'll get from over here. Get a bit low on them. So that's all the tools we're likely to need. So we'll take that out. Just put that there so it's doing its thing. And then it's a bit of a waiting. I'll do this real time so you can see how long it takes me to do it. And then leave it a bit longer. Some of them come off quite quickly, some don't. I think this one will be a little while before it releases. Normally I put the next one in to start softening at this point, but as I'm going to do the rest off camera, I probably won't. So all this thing about handling them gently, I'm really rough with decals. I'm not the best at it at all. And whilst the decaling is going on, I'll put the decals on, get them set, show you where they've all gone, and then put this to one side and just talk about, I'll do the recording for what I thought about the cost of the model overall, but I'll get this done first. Record that in advance so you'll see this in the background when the final part. That's it, she's loose now on the paper. So we've got to be very careful because I would have normally left that paint overnight, but to be honest, I'm going away for the week and I wanted to get this as near done as possible. So it looks like the center of that star should be around that rivet there. Another center, you'll see when I put it on. That is probably softening the paint, but we're all right with that. We've got to be a bit careful as well. I'll put this down because we don't want to knock off the wing mirror, but I glued that on, or the rear view mirror. I glued that on as early as I could before it's painted so that you get a really strong bond. So we need to slide our decal onto the model. So you're looking at the guidelines, that rivet should be in the center of that point there. Seems to make sense. So that's on. So we get our cotton swab. These are going to be way, way, way too bright. That's not quite horizontal, so it's not. Get a bit of water underneath it again. Then we'll try and leave it dry and just get it so that line's horizontal with it. We will try and tone these down so they're not quite as bright. But this is because we're doing it with the bare minimum of equipment, we are going to run into that problem. Right, okay, that's as flat as I can get it now, but there's still little wrinkles here, and there's a rivet there that's poking through. So what we're going to do, we're going to wipe off the brush as much as we can. And we're going to get our thinners, and we have to be careful because it will activate the paint underneath, but this will soften a Tamiya decal, I found. So rather than buying separate decal solutions, we can use that to thin your paint anyway, and you've got it. So just paint it on the decal, and that whole decal has to be covered, not just the bits that are wrinkling up, otherwise it'll get pock marks in it. And just paint that on. So the decal's wet with the thinners, and that will soften it enough that it will conform to the outlines of the model. So we're just going to leave that for a minute or two, and it will work relatively quickly. Where's the lid for that? Oh, you tend to spill them over here. You don't want to overwork them when they've got that stuff on, but you do want to just try and get it to conform to the surface. You can see now it's sitting over those rivets quite nicely. Now, all of things to say you put it on, you leave it, you never touch it. Yeah, okay. Each their own. You find a method that works for you. For me, I can be quite brutal with them, and I've never had too much of a problem. Saying that, probably will do now. So you just want to get the air out from behind the rivet that's there. So once we know that's fully flattened, run out the last of it. And it doesn't matter these rivets are breaking through a little bit. That's quite good because these would have been painted on and it would have got scuffed and the paint would have come through the white paint with the star. And it would have been not like that. So it's conformed well and it's bulging around there, but it just needs a little bit more. But this time we're going to paint that on. And leave it to probably on that and just leave it to do its own thing. But the paint around there will be really soft now because we put that on. The decal will be really soft, so you just have to walk away and leave that alone. Probably leave it overnight, this one. Just to say this won't be up. This will come up a long time after the last video. It was meant to be almost simultaneously, but I don't think I'll get a chance to get this finished before I disappear, but that's all right. Try and avoid going on the paint. It's just on the decal itself, and that'll get a bit wrinkly for a little while, but then it'll calm down. And then if we find out we've got bubbles in the middle of things, we can always pop them with a pin and put another coat of this on later on. And so I'm quite happy those rivets are popping through. That doesn't matter to me. That gives it a bit more character because they are actual rivets and the paint would have worn off. So that's how I decal. I shall get the rest of the decals on, and when they're hardening, I say I'll do a little bit about the tools we bought. So I'll show you when the decals are all on. I'll be back in a minute. Okay, so we've got all the decals on. You have to be careful now for a good day because they're a bit soft and squidgy, especially when we put the thinners on to what am I saying? Oh yeah, to make them conform to the body. So you have to be a bit careful, or maybe not rush it. But you can see now this star we put that bit of thinners on. Actually, that little rivet ended up a lot further over than I thought, but that doesn't matter. It's conforming nicely to the surface. Oh, I was way off camera for all that. It's conforming nicely to the surface. The little rivets are poking through. Luckily, we've got no silvering on the decals, which is when you get air trapped underneath them, normally on a rougher surface. So you hear a lot about Tamiya decals being really thick and unwieldy, but the people who seem to criticise them don't ever show you what they've built. I've noticed. I don't ever have a problem with them. You can handle them quite roughly. you can drag them around and they're all fine. There's a bit of silvering on this one here when the light gets to it. That may disappear as it dries and it pulls down. Don't want to overwork them. I'd rather have a bit of silvering than a damaged decal at this point. It doesn't matter. I was going to put a wash all over this because the markings are quite bright, but I think I'll just concentrate on the lower half. They don't seem that bright when they're on, and the danger is you'll get a build-up of wash all the way around the edge of that starter highlight and it'll look a bit false. So we'll just drag a bit down the lower half. So it's been a dry, dusty summer this has been running around in, but I'll leave that to one side for now. It's all but complete. I've got a few tools to put on the back there, which I'll do when that decal's finished drying off. So I put a bit of a wash on it and take some final reveal type photos for you, and that's this one done. Then I'll do a small 5-minute bit at the end, just recapping what it costs to make a model, and I'll record that now so it'll all look a bit out of sync because this will be in the background, not quite finished while I'm talking, but that's only because I've got time on my hands while the decals are hardening. So thanks for staying with me so far. There'll be a slight wash on it soon, which I'll do on camera so you can see what I've done, and then this one will be finished. So back later.